Stage 27 guide. We're going to start off with Quam use. We have 4 ways to use Quam. We can use Quam as a relative. That's when we use the word puellam and Quam. Quam goes back or relates back to puellam. That makes it a relative. Translation would be the girl whom, whatever happens. Superlative, when I use the double R, double S, double L, plus Quam, it becomes as blank as possible. So this superlative would be as quickly as possible. When I use it with comparison, like the IOR here, I use dumber than. Quam becomes than. And then exclamatory, Quam is how. We've had this for several weeks, so hopefully you won't miss that one. Next, I have negative commands. They kind of threw this in here in this chapter. Not a whole bunch of experience with this, but I take noli and nolite to create negative commands. Instead of saying non-ama to create a don't love, I say noli amare. So I'm going to use noli for the singular, nolite for the plural, and then an infinitive to tell someone not to do something. For example, if I say don't go, it would be noli ire. So if I wanted to say you all, plural, go, I would say nolite ire. Next we have substantive. Substantive is an adjective that does not have a noun to go with it. So you have to make up a noun or a pronoun for it. Here I give you 3 examples: bonus S, bonus, bona S, and bonum S. Each one of those means something different. For the first one I have, he is a good man. Where did the word man come from? It's not in that sentence. You're right, it's not. But us is singular and masculine, so I could assume that it means man or boy or something masculine. And I chose man in this case. A substantive is just an adjective that is being used as a noun. Sub means under, stan means to stand, so to understand or be understood has an understood noun with it. If I want to change it to bona, make it singular feminine, I get she is a good girl or she is a good woman. Depends on context. Bonum est, it is a good thing. So substantive, it's going to be kind of hanging around in your translation. Shouldn't be too tough. Gerundive of obligation, we've had this for a couple of weeks. Nd plus be equals must be in my translation. So if I take a gerundive like interficiendus est and I add that be verb est, I get a gerundive of obligation, and I translate it as he must be killed. Apologize, I misspelled that. He must be killed. Short participle review just with the endings, present tense, active, and passive. I only have the active. We're going to get NS and NTIS for that. Present, NT, NT. Perfect active only comes from deponents like egressus, ingressus, secutus, locutus. Perfect passive comes from our fourth principal part of our normal verbs. And then future URUS, you don't know that yet. I just put that on there. NDUS is our gerundive. That's our future passive participle. You have to be able to identify these. Make sure that you can translate the present as ing, present active ing. The perfect is going to be having plus ed for the active and having been plus ed for the passive. And then for the futures, we only using that nd must be for right now. And so here I have present active. It's going to have that nt like amantum does, translated as loving. Don't put one for the present passive. Amatus has to be a deponent. Amatus is not a deponent. So what do? I need a deponent. When I get the deponent agressus, I translate as having left. Amatus is having been left, or having been loved. The difference in the two is the been. Passive voice is going to use some sort of be verb like been to create the passive voice. And then our future passive, our gerundive, is only going to be used right now for our nd must be. Okay, with the adverbs, you're going to have positive, comparative, and superlative adverb use. You're going to have to identify it on your test. Now, again, this is probably wrong, but I assume that you know that I can change the lentus to lente to create an adverb. So lentus, the positive adjective, change it to lente to create a positive adverb. I add ius for the comparison, so lentius. And then for the superlative, I can use double S, double R, double L if I need it, lentissimus. So make sure you can identify those as slowly, more slowly, and very slowly. Vocative. Well, I'm going to use vocative when I'm trying to gain someone's attention. So if I say, hey, you, that would be vocative. If I'm trying to get your attention, David, stop it, that would be vocative. Vocative is giving somebody a shout out. So in this case, all of the vocatives are going to look like they're nominative with the exception of, okay, correction on lentissime, it should be lentissime for my superlative, not lentissimus. My bad, I made it an adjective instead of an adverb. Okay, vocatives are all going to look like nominatives with the exception of the second declension US endings. They're going to change to E. And so Puella, if I want to say, hey girl, don't run, I would say Puella, noli carrera. If I wanted to say man, don't run, I would say weir, noli carrera. If I want to say king, don't run, I would say rex, noli carrera. However, if I want to use salvius, which I spelled correctly now, I would use salve. So salve, which is kind of ironic, don't run. So hello, don't run. His name is Hello. In the handout that you guys have, there's some practice with the subjunctives, use of subjunctives, things that you're going to have to use: purpose, result, indirect, question, indirect command, and cum clause. Purpose clause only has an oot. That's the only thing it'll have. The result clause will have a so word plus an oot. So words that you have are tom, tauntus, audio, and tote. Indirect question is going to have some kind of asking verb plus a question word. And then indirect command is going to have some kind of ordering verb or a verb that could create an order, and then oot. Cum clause, well, just don't miss the cum clause. Last I have hic versus hic. No, this is not tremel versus tremel. This is hic without a macron versus hic with a macron. If it doesn't have a macron, it means this man, this thing, whatever. If it does have a macron, it is the word here, the adverb here, in this place, here. That could cause some issues in your translation, so make sure that you're looking for that macron on hic. What do you think would happen in the baths of the soldiers? Mr. Siegfried.
It was much like a civilian bath in a town, just like the military fort is much like, in many ways, like its own little town. So in the baths, the soldiers...
Okay, that's good. They just cleaned up. Thank you. What was the catubernarium? Stephen, on the street.
It was a section of 8 people together in the barracks.
Section of 8 people.
Yeah.
Go back and read that again and come back.
It says it.
In our story, who would have lived there? So Modestus or Strithio would have lived there, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Good job. What were the Tribune houses, and who would live in the Tribune house?
They were the houses that the tribunes lived in.
Yeah? Which one of our characters would have lived there?
Agricola.
Zeus Tribune, whose name was Rufus. Rufus. Agricola? What are you thinking? What would be built in the workshops? Okay, turd, ner.
They would build saddles and tools and all that jazz
Saddles for the chariots?
for the horses.
Okay. What else would be built in that workshop? You think maybe weapons, shields,
Yeah, probably.
prison bars, your house?
I would say so.
Maybe some chains to hold you and your children in?
That's just
What were the wiki?
The wiki were the settlements that grew up around the military bases, and they developed into towns. And that's kind of where the families of the soldiers would live. And it started out with like people...
Yeah, that's good. We don't want the whole story. Good. What were the Principia?
The Principia were the headquarters.
That might be the only question he gets right all year. What is a Praetorium?
The Praetorium was the personal house of the commander.
It was. He was the commander in charge of the...
Camp.
Okay. And Bob has an addendum.
The Praetorium was built as a Roman-style house, like a villa you would see in...
Yeah, go sit. What is a valetudinarium? I will give you a hint. It's where you're going to end up if you don't get this right.
The hospital.
That's right. Very good. It is the hospital. Interesting part here, if you need some help, wale is what we say when we say goodbye, because we're saying be well. So a valetudinarium is a place to get well. What is the appropriate term for Horea in English?
The granaries.
Very good. What is a Sikellum?
A pagan chapel.
Pagan chapel, so right next door to your house?
Yeah.
What was the Aquila? Davis.
It was the eagle figure thingy-majig on top of the staff.
So the eagle thingy-majig on top of a staff. Why was it important?
The dude would carry it into battle.
They did have a standard bearer that would carry the Aquila. was very important to the Legion. It was a way for them to follow the army, the Legion that they were in. One of the worst thing that could happen to a Legion is for them to lose their Aquila. So it would be very unlikely that you would be able to capture one, and if you did, well, another Legion would come and get it from you. Okay, Aquila is now spelled correctly. I apologize for my misspelling. I was spelled wrong as a baby. What is a basilica?
It's the Great Hall.
Where would I find that?
I didn't look for that.
Yeah, that would be like in the headquarters, along with the Sacellum. What is the Carcer? I'm going to choose somebody who's going to end up there.
The prison of the camp.
Yes. And why will you end up there? Are you going to be a prisoner or a guard?
Prisoner, probably.
Prisoner? Are you going to be like a good prisoner or a bad prisoner?
Like Bernie Madoff.
I don't even know who that is. Here we have the locations in the army camp of these specific places. You need to know where the granary is, where the baths are, where the praetorian housing is, where the amphitheater is, where would the headquarters be, where would the, what did he call it, the pagan chapel be, where would the praetorian road be, where would the hospital be, where would the road of leaders of headquarters be, where would the road of, I don't even know what Quintana means, Guantanamo Bay. Make sure you're aware of where they would fit on this map. There is a copy of this map with the arrangement in your book on 135. Make sure that you're aware of all of the ones I gave you, like what are the roads. Okay, so this is the Via Quintana. This one right here, Via Principis, Principalis, whatever. That's the green one, Via Praetoria. Okay, along with the roads, you're going to have to know where's an amphitheater. It's going to be somewhere outside the city walls. I think your book had it at the bottom right. The Thermae, they belong right there, number 30. Principia, that's the headquarters, 22. Praetorium, that's where my leader lives, that's 24. The hospital is right here, right next to the Praetorium. The Horia, with over here, quite a ways inside the encampment, want to protect your grain. The Sacella is going to be inside the headquarters, just to the right or left of the basilica, whatever that great hall is.
The question is, what was the worst fate of a legion? It was the loss of the Aquila. That would be very bad. They would have to regain control, or they would have been completely embarrassed and not get to go back home. Have you seen my squirrel?
How many men were in a barracks block? 80.
The next thing I got, I said, what do the civilians provide for the soldiers? Trade in women and food in the name of Jesus. And he said this, we'll give you grain if you need it. And he brought grain to the soldiers.
So what relationship were soldiers allowed to have with women of the area? They had unofficial unions because you didn't want a bunch of Roman citizens that were illegitimate running around the countryside. Oh, where did the soldiers' families live? Just outside the walls, just outside the walls, just outside the walls!
So, what covered the most area in the fortress? That'd be the barracks. That's where all the soldiers would stay. And what covered the least? That would be the prison. I don't know why they're all Italian. They all should be in jail.
It is fairly important that you remember the storyline. So go back through the stories that are in the book. I would read, kind of skim over them a little bit, and make sure that you know what's going to happen from one to the next. In our first story, Suporio, that's where Modestus and Strithio are hiding out, having let everybody out of their cages. Modestus is obviously upset being in the granary. He's trying to create a party, so he sends Strithio out to invite the guests and get some wine and some food. We pick up the Subhoria on the second day that they're in hiding. So he basically sends Strithio out at that point to get everybody underneath the granary. Great idea. In the next story, which is Modestus Antonitus, Strithio goes away. Modestus is left there by himself. All of a sudden, a bunch of British guys come in, and they're going to burned down the granary. Somehow, Modestus catches himself on fire from one of the torches and comes running out. He's addressed by Vercibrix, and Vercibrix is like, don't worry about this soldier. He's a sissy. He's not going to do anything to us. He tells him, grab him and let's set this place on fire. However, so in that story, he's trying to decide what he needs to do with the British. And then as we go into the next story, Modestus Promotus, that's where he catches himself on fire. He runs out. He throws the wine in the hole so that they can't get out and says, hey, I've caught him. And so tells everybody that he set up this trap, and he's been doing this, he's been thinking about this. I set this trap up and I caught him. As a result, he is promoted to be the overseer of the prison. Good job, bud. Here's a list of characters and items that are used in the story. Be aware of these. You have the amphora. That's the object that he uses to shove into the hole so that the British are... Okay, Aulus is the guy that he takes the wine from, puts himself out when he's on fire. Coquus, obviously, is the cook. He cooks the food. Legatus is obviously the leader of the camp. But you also need to know, what does he do during these stories? What decisions does he make? For example, we know that somebody owes him money. Who was it, Bob? The cook owes...
No, he owes money. He owes the cook.
All right, Bob completely messed that up. Legatus does not owe anybody money. The Legatus does make some decisions here. He congratulates Modestus, gives him a different job, puts him in charge of the prison. Is excited. He hears the whole camp full of the voices or the shouts and comes out. Negrina is the lady friend of Modestus and Strithio. Publicus. So Publicus is supposed to bring the dice and the lanterns. Strithio is his friend. We know he's out there trying to get the party started. Valerius is the... and then Vercibrix is the British chieftain's son that's trying to cause all kinds of problems. Some of the Latin words that you're going to see in translations that might bother you, for example, sibi cogitare is to think to himself, to think to oneself. Audax is daring. Alia is dice. Arcesera is to summon. Ignarius is no. Mandatum is an order. Latera is to harm. Coenera is to meet. Implorare is to order. Ubera is to order. Nocera is to injure, to kill. Cura is to occur. Usum is in order. Nesciens is not knowing.
Clamor, noise. Proximus, near. Primium, prize. Antea, before. Sivire, to be in a rage. Poena, penalty. Gaudere, to rejoice. Postea, after. Ultimus, final. Silentium, silence.
We're going to wrap this up with a little bit of English. We got an apparition. That's one of them ghost things walking around going, whoa. Ardent. That means that you are burning with enthusiasm. Yeah. Decent. No one in my class. Wait a second. That's not right. Conforming to standards, usually associated with social standards. Incendiary. That's one of them devices we use to blow people up. We burn it on fire. Incendiary, capable of being caught on fire. Insidious. Well, Darth Sidious Vader, that thing that turned into red. Insidious is evil. The evil inside. Yocular. Well, that has to do with yocks or jokes, something like that. So it's supposed to be funny. Innocuous. Well, if you inoculate something, you make it harmless. So if you go get your inoculations, I promise no harm will come to you, and smallpox will be eradicated. Next we have precipitate. That's to fall down some kind of slope and slide. I guess if you're skiing, you're precipitating, sort of. To fall down, hurl yourself downward. Reticent. That means that you're a pipsqueak and you don't like to talk none. Tantamount means it amounts to such.